What's up, everybody? Welcome back to SkillSharp The Podcast. We're two entertainment recruiters with a combined 30 years of recruiting in the highly competitive entertainment industry. I'm Todd Nakasone, and my esteemed co-host.
Brian Wright, and we're here to talk to you about accessing the hidden job market.
So, Brian, today I read a stat that up to 80% of job openings are never posted online.
Oh,
I think that's kind of high. I mean, I could think of three ways. Um, Use strategic networking, leverage employee referrals, or get in through an employee referral, and attend industry events and communities. Or do you see any other ways that people can access the hidden job market?
well, I think that number is high as well, but I could see where they could be including internal promotions or lateral moves where people are moving into different positions. Also, where people that are contractors with them or consultants get hired, or temporary employees, temporary workers get converted. So, I mean, that could be the total amount. The other thing I think, if they're looking at the entire job market, we're not talking just large corporations that everyone is thinking about, big brand names. It could also be medium sized to smaller businesses where they don't necessarily have budgets to post all of their jobs, or they're almost thinking about opportunities as they meet talent and how can that person fit in. So that could be something that's driving the number up to that 80%.
No, that's a great stat because you think about some of these smaller to medium sized businesses, they may not have specific talent acquisition teams. So they're recruiting by word of mouth or um, just using referrals as another way. But yeah, sometimes these smaller companies don't actually have big talent acquisition presence.
And Todd, they're oftentimes looking for more than one role in one person. So it could be this person's going to handle three different responsibilities versus just one. And that's hard to write a job description for and recruit traditionally for. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
No, I was just thinking about what we were talking about the other day, and I was actually interviewing a candidate, right? Uh, he works in traditional media and looking to get out of it only because traditional media is getting squeezed.
Hmm.
And he actually started to just apply to roles, but he actually leveraged a few internal referrals because uh, he had a few interactions with our company. But when I looked at his resume, it really didn't match that. It just spoke of old traditional media, and unfortunately, he would have been just in a pile without that referral. So that got to me think it's like, hey, how did this guy leverage uh, his candidacy when in fact I probably may have passed his resume over. Actually,
Did did he get hired?
we're still going through the process.
Oh, okay. But what you're saying is if he had come traditionally, you may not have even gotten him in the mix.
That's right. So without leveraging that referral, I don't know that I would have spoken to him. And in
Well,
fact, dude, the way I got into AG was through a referral.
okay, so this is the deal though. You Yeah, but this was like an apples to apples role that you were looking for.
That's
Like
true.
that person that you just described, that I think that is a big problem with referrals and people trying to access this hidden job market. It doesn't make them more qualified for the role. And if they're not showing it on the resume, to your point, they're not going to stand out more than the other people that we have in the mix.
So I put into ChatGPT, using ChatGPT, the best way, and this is quote, the best way to find a job before applying online. And then it goes on to say is to tap into the hidden job market, which includes opportunities not publicly advertised. Here's a proven proactive approach to uncovering those roles. Number one, identify target companies. So say, like what we talked about before, make a target list of companies that you want to work for. Research their mission and recent news and team structure, what have you. Use strategic networking instead of waiting for the job posting. Find key decision makers, whether they be hiring managers or leads on LinkedIn, and then reach out to them. Leverage employee referrals. Attend industry events and communities. So join relevant LinkedIn groups or Slack communities, go to meetups, and then promote yourself. Update LinkedIn headlines, show that you're open to new opportunities, post helpful content, comment on industry trends. I also actually reshare job postings with colleagues from for different opportunities I think they might be interested in.
Hmm.
And, just to give my network visibility on LinkedIn. And then that actually turned into an interview one day. So by promoting yourself or your network or something, uh, it helps you get noticed by that particular hiring manager.
No, that's a great point. I mean, all those things are about building a more comprehensive job search, period. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a hidden job market, but you know what I called it? A personal PR campaign. It's more than posting online. I mean, hey, I see a job posting, let me upload my resume and apply. But this is more of I'm taking my entire search into my own hands.
Yep.
And I'm using all of those different resources that you mentioned to be able to get the word out.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of found out when I was looking for a job. So I get laid off uh, actually right around the financial crisis in New York City, right? And my network's not super strong in New York. I was only been out there maybe 2 years or whatever. It was hard to find a job. If you tell people you're looking for a job, they're going to go scrambling. You're not going to get a lot of conversations that way. So you almost had to offer something else in return.
Hmm.
So, hey, you know, what I did was I started helping people with their resumes. If you imagine during the financial crisis, a lot of beggars are out of jobs. So I helped them recraft their resume. And a lot of times, they hadn't had or looked for a job in, gosh, years, but just the industry got turned on its ear. And I found myself hearing all these stories about how, to access or get to the hidden job market. And sometimes it's just having conversations with people and providing a service. And then sometimes that will lead to a networking opportunity, which will lead to a opportunity. Fortunately, I got hired by another company through contract. It actually turned into a temp to hire opportunity. So the temp positions too could be a good entryway.
I mean, listen, I realized it pretty early on, but it was definitely during the studio kind of network experience that I had. And number one, as you know, the process when someone's departing, everything is happening at light speed. So, and it's usually during a busy time. So, the hiring manager's like, I gotta get somebody in here. And literally they would just work through our temp agency on site and place somebody. So they would get like a temp in while we were doing the search. Well, guess what? Once the person got familiar, they were a good stopgap for the responsibilities and the hiring manager felt comfortable. We were converting them into staff. So I always promoted that to make sure we had a level playing field and I was getting people in to perform right before the search was over. But back to, the conversion, we were dealing with about 25% conversions in, look, admin roles, analyst roles, roles where people could step in with not necessarily exact functional expertise, but they had really good administrative skills, really good relationship skills, really good core skills in general. Yeah, I mean, I think the conversion piece is I mean, that's something that we're talking about too. People are also looking for outright jobs right now. The challenge is companies are not often hiring employees right now. They want to hire contractors and per project. So again, employees need to acclimate their minds to consulting work or short-term work or project work, demonstrate your skill set, and then be able to make that conversion into other positions. What are your thoughts on that? Because I don't know if your companies have followed that practice.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in that. I mean, uh, one of the companies that uh, we worked at together, uh, I got in as a contractor first, and it was only supposed to last 6 to 9 months. But then I got extended because budgets work. They go year to year, especially if the projects aren't completed yet. But once the project was coming to an end, then it's like, oh my gosh, hey, what's next? Uh, and it was traditional entertainment, right? So one of the things about getting into entertainment is that you have to have a lot of times advocates, right, working for you,
Mhm.
so referrals. So, but I was my own advocate because I was a contractor already, and that's when I got hired by Warner Brothers.
And recruiting, I feel like we've always been kind of like ahead of the curve. We've almost been always industry indicators. So contract recruiters, HR people are always comfortable doing project work, like you were saying. I know the finance project the big Warner Brothers finance project where they were implementing a brand new system. Is that where you came in? I forget the name of it.
Yeah, that was part of it actually. Yeah, it was the uh, ERP implementation. We implemented SAP.
Oh, it was SAP. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I
So
thought,
I actually got in. Get this. Uh, talk about different degrees of separation, but um, their network wasn't up to par to handle all that traffic that SAP was going to uh, require of the Warner Brothers network. So I just came off of working for a network engineering company where we hired a bunch of network engineer, like subject matter experts, just really heady stuff, especially with the architecture the way it was. And I had to hire a whole bunch of network engineers for this SAP project. And then we had another team recruiting those engineers that could implement SAP.
mhm.
So I got in through a different layer of what the actual need was. But that just goes to show is like, having being prepared for that particular opportunity is the way to get into a particular industry. Yeah. And then after that, so when I went full time, they needed accountants to be able to work on the system. So I had the advantage of knowing, what system that they had put in. But then I was also accounting and finance recruiter prior to this.
So your network is strong.
Yes.
Your experience dealing with the hiring managers are strong, so you can manage their expectations and relationships. Yeah, man, that it's a fortunate thing on the way you came in. So getting a variety of those under your belt, you become this, master of all that makes you marketable. And think about it. Again, the way that we recruiters are getting that skill set and we call them generalists at times. Obviously, there's still technical recruiters and specialized recruiters, but the people that we recruit for are oftentimes hyper specialized. And if they don't realize varying their skill set would actually be a benefit to them, like a financial portfolio and having diversity, I mean, they're putting themselves in a precarious situation if something were to shift. Let me ask you this in terms, because I know you're also working with others. And not to compare yourself, but do you feel like everyone maximize that opportunity like you did, or do you think other people got caught? Because I do know that based on some of these projects, people's opportunities go up, and sometimes people's opportunities go down.
Uh, that's a good question because I think it's definitely there's a lot of luck involved.
I mean,
You know,
other people, champions, advocates,
yeah.
yeah.
I actually heard about this that role. I talked about it Warner Brothers through uh, previous colleague where I was working. That was more of a internet based company. It was actually a startup that really didn't make it. So went from that job, and then I was contracting, and then the Warner Brothers contract opportunity came up. So I just think it's a mixture of luck and being in the right place. But I definitely had my advocates. So I got in through a referral from that from the start. What do you think about the use of executive recruiters or executive coaches?
I mean, we have an upcoming, or at this point, I think the episodes will have launched already, but we interviewed our friend Wade Smart, who has Smart Partners Consulting LLC, and phenomenal combination business of executive recruitment and coaching, which I mean, obviously some of the best search firms in the world, example, Korn Ferry, started to do that as well. So I think as a candidate, it's exclusive. So not every executive search firm is going to want to work with you, but if you can access that, there is a hidden market there because there are opportunities that would come to them either confidentially or without a lot of fanfare where they're not posting it. They're like, we can't really expect to find this position through people seeing the job posting and applying. We need you to go into companies and find the right person for us. So you want to be a part of that list that they generate, those analysts generate to say, or sources generate to say, hey, this may be somebody that you want to consider.
Yeah, that's why I always say be nice to that recruiter because when you need them, you want them to be on your side.
And it's tough, you know, think about this. A lot of the times that candidates that don't get selected, yeah, it could be on our side where, okay, yeah, you weren't selected. You were in the top five, you weren't selected. A lot of times back in my days of recruiting, it was because we couldn't offer enough salary or we couldn't meet their demands to pull them out of a job if we were, direct sourcing them. And not that it ever got contentious, but think about it. I mean, you have people that really had to then state what they wanted so I can then index them for future. So they're looking for this amount of money. They're looking for this kind of situation that includes this type of growth. And either fortunately or unfortunately, if those jobs came up, I'm then going back through, like you had mentioned, through the CRM and your notes, and I'm saying, all right, this was the person's criteria. So it could either match that or not. So that means that the jobs that you would be considered for, it could be a very narrow funnel or it could be a wider funnel.
Yep, absolutely. When I was before I went internal recruiting, I was a headhunter.
What are the boundaries, or I mean, what are you having to do as a true headhunter that's different than normal recruiting?
So going and finding the candidates that may be passive and just knocking on as many doors as you can. When I say knocking on as many doors, make as many calls as possible to get people interested in your role. So you're basically selling a career opportunity, a career change, when in fact somebody could be, just super happy in the job. They love what they do. They got a great boss. You're never going to pull that person out. But once maybe there's a little bit of dissatisfaction, That's when you want to go in and just start creating those relationships. But uh, there's always that dance in presenting an opportunity and not sharing just enough information where you get the candidate, a passive candidate, into an active candidate to go interview for your job, and um, and then sharing who the opportunity is with, because they can just go apply, directly. Or it's like, hey, I know
Mm,
somebody at that company. I'll just go through referral, and you're not going to get a placement, right, with that candidate.
interesting.
So I had a candidate who wanted to know what company it was, and I was like, oh, gosh, I didn't want to share what company it was actually I was recruiting for. And she goes, "Oh yeah, I know that I know the hiring manager over there, so I'm just going to apply directly." I was like, "Man, see, you think I'm going to work with that candidate again?"
It's kind of a missed opportunity on her part, though. Why wouldn't you want to be presented as a corroborating, hey, yeah, the hiring manager saying, yeah, I know this person, but whoa, wait a minute, the recruiter actually identified them as well.
And that's the thing. At least I would get credit for it, but that's the one thing that what I did. I worked hard to find people better than her.
Hmm. And I
So
mean, I've always been scared of true. Well, in search, like most of the recruiting positions that we had to do, we even though we did post a job, and again, this is the tough thing for people to understand and accept, but the percentage of qualified people. So for us to be looking for a director, a senior director of, digital platforms or AWS, Amazon Web Services back in the day, like you can't expect if someone's good at their job that they're necessarily then also out looking. It just usually people that are good, not to say that they're all happy, but they don't have time to do a traditional job search unless they're out of work. And that's the one, I think, thing that people really need to understand. It's always easier to look for a job when you have a job because of the reception that you'll get. But when you don't have a job, like you said, when you're networking with people, you tell them, yeah, I'm looking for work. I mean, it's like now it's a yes or no question. They either know about opportunity or they don't.
I had a uh, friend of, well, not a friend of, it's an acquaintance of mine, and he was actually looking for a house. So he was on a house hunting trip, and he wanted. So he there's this house that he was looking to buy through a mutual acquaintance. So I didn't know the person directly, but he said, "Hey, why don't we put your house for sale up by owner, and you can cut the real estate agent out?" And I said, "Why would you do that? This person's been working hard for you, showing you homes and what have you, and you want to cut this person out? That person going to work with you in the future? I mean, yeah, you'll be just listed as a pariah, man." So, yeah, I talked him out of doing something like that, but man, that's not taking anybody's. I mean, that's taking somebody's relationship and trust and putting it on its ear. I don't think people should do that, but they think they're slick.
Ty, it's a very difficult situation because we also know the disappointment of recruiting and missing out on a candidate. And guess what? That happens all the time. Not in that specific real estate situation, but I'm saying like people choosing to not necessarily burn the relationship, but just look, I can't do that. We've been down this entire path of interviewing, and there's only a certain amount that separates us, but technically you just don't feel comfortable making the move. I have to respect that. There's nothing else I could say at that point. Does it make me feel great? No. Or you go down that path, I have to present, you give someone an offer. Hey, I have to present it to my employer. Just look, I just want to make sure that they understand what's going on and I don't want to burn a bridge. Okay, they come back and counter. They decide to stay. I mean, there's just honestly, it's a interesting wheel because you're dealing not again with paper, you're dealing with individuals and not just a person that gets hired, but the entire slate to a certain extent, depending on how many people you engage with. This is all like the most important thing that's going on in their life, potentially life changing. So recruiters are much maligned, but we've always played a very deep role
Oh,
in changing people's lives.
yeah, that's what I love about this particular role. And let's say that they don't get the job, I feel like I owe it to them to coach them up for that next opportunity, whether it be through interview feedback, adjusting one's resume to help get noticed. I'll never present a candidate unless I'm happy with that particular person's resume. If I feel they're uh, not being able to communicate specifically how they're right for a particular job, I'll ask them to make a few tweaks to get noticed, either through the use of keywords or key metrics that they may want to discuss, uh, special projects that they may have forgotten about that you know can actually help leverage them into actually getting the job, making them more qualified than the next person. Because it's a competition, right? There's only one gold medalist. But I'll share with them, it's like, hey, you did a great job. It's just this other person had, you know, one more year of experience, or you know, had a particular area that they were maybe a little stronger in, let's say project management.
So I can imagine when we bring up the topic of a hidden job market, or, you know, it's almost like job openings, what's public and what people aren't aware of is like an iceberg. So there's only going to be a certain amount of jobs posted on the public sites, period, because of cost, because of timing, many factors. And then there'll be this whole, sea of other job openings. So people feel like, oh my gosh, this is another area I have to navigate, and how am I going to do that? How- on two sides, how do you talk to internal people looking for advancement? Because they're really in they're a job market in themselves, right? Or an applicant market in themselves. And then how do you try to manage the expectations of external talent, not just for your jobs, but jobs across your network in general?
That's a very, very good question. And I think it's all being open and honest with yourself in terms of, I do a skills inventory, what you're good at, maybe what areas you need working on, and then looking at that job, let's call it a dream job or your dream promotion. And what does that entail? What skills can you glean from the job description that you're you've got a lot of pros, and then the ones that maybe you're not as strong, needs development. And just being open and honest with yourself is like, hey, maybe I need to take that course on, my learning and development uh, system at the office, and maybe I need to uh, improve my Excel skills. Maybe in my current role, I'm not utilizing Excel like this next role needs to. Well, take that course, or um, you can go to companies like Coursera or what have you to get a certification in a particular area. But I think it really starts with being open and honest with yourself versus saying, "Oh, I know the person, I know the hiring manager, I'm a shoe in."
So the harsh question is, are people listening, or do they just want the introduction? Just get me to the right person. If I meet the right person, you open up your network to me, I will sell them. I'll get that job. I just need to meet the hiring manager. Or can you get the resume to the right person? Like they just want the contact and want very little to do with any kind of optimization or honing or betterment of their position to ensure that they may get the opportunity. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I would leverage the opportunities to join various industry events and or communities, only because it'll help you hone in your messaging to make it succinct, developing your elevator pitch basically. And during these networking events, you're able to speak intelligently about a particular topic is when you speak up, add to the conversation, add to the narrative. And they'll
Right.
always remember you as that, oh, you remember that person who made that point about AI or whatever? Yeah, we should talk to him about this upcoming role or whatever it might be, right? I think it's constantly honing in on your message. Eventually, your message will resonate with one person. If you have 100 conversations, you're probably going to at least get one hit
That,
rather than,
yeah,
just speaking
yeah,
to 10 people or
yeah.
5 people that, it's in your network. That's what recruiters do, right? They'll go on LinkedIn. They'll look for 100, people to reach out to. Eventually, you're going to get like 5 people say, yeah, that sounds interesting.
It's we've heard the term reverse recruiting and
Right.
also just going back to the point, you're right. Even if someone wasn't initially aware that they needed to improve, if they increase their reps, naturally
Yeah.
they're going to get better.
When I first got into recruiting, my boss said, you know, this is not an easy job. You're going to get a lot of rejection. I go, yeah, I kind of figured. But he goes, no, you have to talk to 10 people, 50 people, 100 people before you get one yes. You can't that let get you can't let that get you down. So just because each conversation, you know, will lead to either improving your pitch, just kind of understanding, you know, maybe not today. A no is not a no to me. A no is unfortunately no, not today. But just keep at it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. And always remember to stay sharp.